All right, we're live at Buffalo Trace Distillery. It's Whiskey Wednesday with Harlen Wheatley, our Master Distiller. And Harlen, what are we going to talk about today?
Well, last Wednesday, we talked about the cooking operation. And really the next big step in the process is fermentation. And it's really, well, I always say it's where the magic happens, because one of the things we do is we got a lot of different recipes that we cook, and we transfer all those cooks along with previously fermented mash or setback from the still, and we combine that with our yeast. And that yeast, we isolated that right after Prohibition. And we've been using that same yeast ever since, and it's a really important part of this process. And we mix all those ingredients together in our fermenters, and the yeast acts on that sugar that we expose during cooking, and then creates the alcohol that's the whiskey that we use for distillation. So it's a really important part of the process, and some of the things we do differently are we use some of the biggest fermenters in the business. Our capacity, we're filling 5 of these 92,000 gallon fermenters every single day. We empty 5 a day, and we're just turning these over. We got 16 fermenters that we're utilizing. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, and I'll show you some of our new ones. But these are the biggest in the industry, and it takes us about 4 hours to fill up a fermenter. And we're transferring the cooks along with the spent beer in with the yeast, and then they'll age anywhere from 3 to 5 days. Kind of depends on the day of the week and depending on the recipe. So, today, this is everything you see today is Buffalo Trace. We're on Buffalo Trace recipe, but on a given day we might have rye whiskey or wheated bourbons, or it just depends on what we're making. And right now this fermenter is sitting here and it's giving off heat. It's an exothermic reaction. So as the yeast is consuming the sugar, it exhales and gives off heat. And this one is about a day old. It's been fermenting about a day, and it'll, like I said, continue. We'll show you one on the way over to our new fermenters that's a little bit older, and as it ferments, it starts to slow down. It's giving off carbon dioxide, and it'll start to slow down and eventually stop, and at that point, that's when we'll do the distillation. But again, really important part of the process, the mixture, and the size is really important too, because the smaller those fermenters get, generally they'll work off a little bit faster. So we have to balance how fast these fermenters are working off with the size and the amounts that we're putting in with the recipe. So that's what we're doing every day, and we're doing more. So we'll walk over to the next fermenter. This is one I was telling you about. It's actually completed, and we'll be distilling it a little bit later on today. So we're running 24 hours, and we'll probably distill this one about 10, 11 o'clock tonight. But it's completed, so very little carbon dioxide being released. Some of the corn oil is floated to the top, and it'll be ready to distill. This one we're just now filling. So we're transferring a cook, which one's coming over now. Good timing. Yeah, he just steamed out one of the lines to sterilize it, and then we've got the cooks coming in the big line. We're pumping those at about 1,000 gallons a minute, 1,000 to 1,200 gallons a minute, and then we put in our setback, and that's coming off the still. And that's really the secret to something we call sour mash. So most bourbon distilleries make sour mash, and we're not any different. All of our bourbons are sour mash, and the way you sour it is by adding that setback. And souring is just a lowering of the pH, and it does a few things. It stabilizes the fermenter. It buffers. It has a pH buffer. It allows that yeast to be nice and healthy when it's consuming that sugar. So a very important part of the process is the souring. And we're stirring at the bottom. We're stirring this fermenter and getting ready for the next cook to come across. We pump a cook We pump a new cook about every 20 minutes. And Mike Wainscott's doing a great job over there right now. He's in the middle of cleaning up the next fermenter. He's rinsing it down, then we add some caustic, and then we steam it out. And so it's a really important part of the process to keep these fermenters clean, keep the bacteria out. It allows us to have good, clean fermentation. Really important. Well, he finished filling this one up. The yeast is already in. All the magic will start happening within 4 hours. The yeast will start consuming the sugars, and by tonight it'll be rolling pretty well. This is another one we set yesterday, so it's in the middle and just getting going. You can tell it's a little bit sluggish. By tonight it'll be moving a little faster, and it peaks, and then it'll start slowing down.
Hey Harlen, you know, one thing I know, and you know as well, is that we have viewers from all over the place, and a lot of folks have never been here. Maybe explain to us what we're smelling. You know, what is some of the things you can't get on through the video?
Well, that's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite areas of the distillery, is because the aroma in here is all about the recipe and the mixtures, and it's always giving off a nice sweet smell based on the bourbons. And also the heat you can feel off of this fermenter. You can lay your hand in there and you can feel the heat coming off. So it really gives you a feeling of how hard these yeast cells are working. And I always say they work themselves to death. They're the hardest working organisms in the distillery.
And I noticed this one over here has a cap. Is there a difference in the tanks because one's capped?
Yeah, one of the things we've done over the years, we've done a lot of experimentation, and we've experimented with the caps and how that reacts to the fermenters, and you know how we can better utilize the cleaning methods. And so all of our new fermenters, we did make the decision to put caps on the new ones, and we did that based on the testing of these two fermenters. So we learned a lot from these two. So last year, you know, part of the phase one, we call it expansion program, we spent about $40 million on expanding our cooking operation, expanding our fermenters and some of our dry house. And the big thing for our fermenters was we needed more fermentation so we could distill more and make more whiskey. You know, everywhere we go, we need to make more whiskey. So that's one of the things we did. We built 4 new ones. And we'll show you that in a minute. And then we're also in the middle of phase 2 expansion, so you'll see some of the construction because we're building even more fermenters. So we'll head that way.
And each one of these fermenters, are they all at different stages or some at the same stage?
So we fill one about every 4 hours, so there's a lag. Every one's at a different stage. So as we fill, we only fill one at a time. So we'll have 16 fermenters, all 16 will be at a different stage. And of course we track that, and we know exactly where these fermenters are sitting and the peak time to do our distillation. So this is our new section. So one of the things we did as part of our last summer expansion is this building was a great building and it had plenty of square footage, But the one issue was the height wasn't enough. So we spent the time and money to raise the roof on this building about 10 feet, and we're able to get these fermenters in. And we wanted to replicate our old fermenters, our original fermenters. So we got this. They're a little bit bigger than our old fermenters. They're basically the same size. We did the closed tops. We're able to control the fermentation a little bit better. We automated some of the cleaning, and we're really happy with them. These will be a couple days old. They'll be ready to go, and this time tomorrow.
Did you say these are the same size as the old ones?
They're slightly low. The ones over there are 92,087. These are 93. So another 1,000 gallons. This one's almost completed. Let me check that one out. So it'll be ready to roll. So like I say, part of the next phase 2 expansion is this isn't enough fermenters. Everybody says more whiskey, so we got to put more fermenters. So these guys are working hard. They're building the fermenters, and first thing they do is they build the tops. They build the tops, and then they'll add a row of metal and raise it up and slowly raise it up. They got all the equipment they need, and they'll get this one done. It takes them about 4 to 6 weeks to get 2 fermenters done. And we're putting in a total of 8 more. So this whole room, the next time you come, will be full of fermenters. We'll head on down to the bottom and show you that. One of the things like the cooking room, we wanted to preserve a little bit of the heritage. And this building's been here for a while. And one of the things it's done is over the years, prior to Prohibition, everything was this brick. And then after Prohibition, up to about 1940, everything was this light green. And then from 1940 to about last year, we had a lot of this yellow. And now we're on our cream. So we got all the different, we decided to preserve the paint colors, from the history. So it was bottling from 1934 to last year. We use this building as a bottling operation. We spent about $60 million moving our bottling operation across the campus, so we were able to expand these fermenters. Some of the old bricks came out of the fermenters. The old Kentucky bricks.
it looks like the expansion is really moving forward, and it's moving fast. And these things are, you can really see the scale of them when you're down here. Let's talk about the expansion real quick. On you know, a question we get all the time, we had it on the cookers as well, is where does this take you from where you were distilling and fermenting and cooking a year ago into the future?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to double our capacity. And you know, a year ago we were making, you know, as many barrels as we could ferment. So we had to add these fermenters, and that allowed our still to run 24 hours. And now that we got our still at capacity, the next step is to expand our still house. So we're in the middle of planning that. We're jackhammering the ground next to it, you know, getting ready for expanding the still, which we'll talk about